pursue that, which I loved. I thought I wanted to be a scientist because my brother's a scientist. But and you pursue what your brother did, and you think, this is what the family does, and I do it better. And I wasn't that good at it. I was okay at it. He's very good. But architecture, I found my calling.
And at what stage did you realize that this is what I wanted to do? Was it when you entered university? Was it when you were in secondary school?
Just before university. That's when it really became clear that I was interested in the built environment and how we live and what that means. And then I decided I wanted to go and study architecture.
And you excelled. Did you surprise yourself at how well you did?
I was surprised because you don't know what you're capable of doing until you find out the purpose, right? So I suddenly found this subject which was no longer about studying. It was just something that made me feel complete. So I just wanted to do it as much as possible. So it was no longer a job or a thing or trying to find a career. It was like, this is who I want to be. So with that feeling of this is who I wanted to be, I just wanted to be the very best of what I did, and thank God I did very well.
Saying very well is a bit modest, isn't it, considering that you were winning awards that people who were your seniors in school were supposed to be winning, and here you were a freshman in school, you were winning it, and you were catching the public eye.
No, I got a lot of, as a black person in Europe, and if you do well, things, you get attention, but I mean, I love my subject, and I got first class honors immediately, and I won the national medal for the best sort of emerging talent, and those were important. But actually, what was important was I was just hungry for this subject. I was very hungry to know everything about it, and I spent every penny that I had traveling to see all the monuments around the world. Whenever I got a gift or anything, I didn't want presents from anyone. I said, "Buy me a trip to see this thing."
And
yeah.
I'm sure the offers did come after you graduated, but you made the rather weird choice of not joining big architectural firms. You went small.
Yeah. No, to begin with, I went to small firms and corporate firms, a small kind of emerging sort of firm that had a very interesting corporate structure that I wanted to learn about. So I really wanted to just understand how to make architecture. I was very interested from an early age in the craft of architecture. And what we mean by that is that how do people make things, what are the traditions, and how do they put things together, and how can we work with those to make them better and improve them for the future?
So for you, break it down for us. What is architecture? So far as a lot of people are concerned, they just see a lot of complicated diagrams and whatnot. For you, what is architecture?
Well, for me, I think there's a belief that architecture is complicated and it's all these things. It is mathematics, it is social science, it is engineering, it is art. But at the end of the day, architecture is the ability to make the built environment edify our communities and our societies. So architecture's job is not to be complicated, and something is not architecture just because it looks complicated. Most of the time, when it looks complicated, it probably isn't architecture, it's just somebody's fancy. Architecture can be incredibly simple sometimes, it can be incredibly background, but it always edifies. I mean, it ennobles the purpose of what it's being made for. A court should ennoble the justice system to work properly. A parliament should ennoble the parliamentarians to be able to debate in a dignified way, to bring issues up. A railway station should be able to bring people, masses of people together in a dignified way to travel, bring a ton of people through a small chamber to travel elegantly and as efficiently. These are the things that show the qualities of architecture, not the look of it. And people misunderstand that a lot.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about this. For a layperson, they'll be like, that building is just brick and mortar. You're kind of romanticized.
Totally. This. Architecture is the most romantic thing ever for me. It's an amazing way in which we write the history of our time in physical materials that we leave behind for others to learn from, to make better worlds for their generations and the generations to come. We don't just make buildings just to be in. I mean, we make buildings also to learn about ourselves as a society and to learn to make things better. We only learn by doing things, and architecture is part of that process. It's a slower process, but it's part of that process.
Is that why you're described as a humanist? And again, I find it strange that these terms are attached to an architect. These are things that you would be looking for in a writer of some sort. But here you are, they say, Sir David Adjaye is a humanist when it comes to his designs. What does that mean?
I think that in the profession, I really talk about architecture not just as a technical skill, but I'm very sensitive to the power that architecture has to inform and literally shape the way in which we behave in society. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not saying that the bricks and mortar do something, but I can give you an example. A prison conditions a prisoner to feel that they're being punished. A chapel or a cathedral enables a person to feel the soaring dignity of hope and aspiration beyond the mortal world or beyond their realm, right? Yeah. So the two things play at different scales and operate on the psychology of a person. So if you can understand those two and can agree with those, imagine what everything is happening between. And then you understand how important it is the built environment is. It's not just some decadent thing or some elitist thing. It is the very thing that gives dignity always and enables and gives kind of a sort of background armor to our society to grow faster.
And it's said that you became this way in your style because family played a role in it. Your brother, for instance, how did that impact you?
Yeah, my youngest brother is mentally and physically handicapped. And so from as far as I could remember, because it happened very early, his first year, he had flu, got into a coma, and he came out with brain damage. But from a very early sort of age, I have worked with disability. I've had to, negotiate, in the 80s, taking him to school, in wheelchairs, watching, having to retrofit our homes so that, you could have hoists or supports, because if you don't have enough bodies to be able to lift him as he got heavier, etc. And going to places, institutions, buildings, streets, even just the side roads, and not being able to carry somebody who's disabled because the roads are terrible, or that there's too many steps, or there isn't a lift in the building to go up, so you have to lift him up. And I felt that there was such an injustice in that, and a lack of dignity in that everybody deserves the best that we can give them. And I realized that actually my calling in architecture was not just to make fanciful buildings, but to create buildings that create that dignity and that purpose. And it really stems from him. So in a way, I became to architecture through a kind of practical sort of desire to sort of see something done. And I realized that that I had to kind of get involved if I felt so strongly about it. And I really felt strongly about it. My degree project, my thesis, was about creating respite communities in the urban centers for disabled people. I strongly disbelieve in the idea that you put them in a hospital somewhere, but you integrate them into communities, and you build, the communities learn about them, and they learn about you, and you integrate, and we make a better society.
Now, I want to talk to you about breaking through as a black architect in Europe. How difficult was it for you?
It's very difficult.
What were the limitations?
I think that there isn't a perception, one, of a black person being an architect in the first place. We're not supposed to be the ones that do that. And then also, I just think there's a difficulty in accepting that a black person is a leader in a subject. It's understandable. It's a white country. They want white excellence, and there's a black person that's doing amazing things. So there's going to be naturally resistance. So what that does is that it makes it very difficult to set up businesses. It makes it very difficult to be taken seriously for a very long time. But, at the same time, I had incredible support too, because the media was very supportive at times, very supportive of, seeing a kind of unique situation. And, I just had to work 10 times harder than my fellow architects, because I just was setting up a business. My father didn't have money to give me. I was totally self-made. I had to just do it myself. And it had all its risks and ups and downs, but thank God I pushed through. And it in the end, I think that if you have conviction and you believe in what you do, I sort of genuinely believe that there are voices and there are people out there who will eventually see you. I think it's worth pursuing that vision that you have if you genuinely believe in change and you genuinely believe in the ability to do something in society, that society will catch up with you. I now really believe that.
Okay. You're watching Face to Face, and today we're speaking to Sir David Adjaye, a man who is redefining the skylines of several countries across the world. When we return, we'll talk about some of these passion projects that he's done, including an upcoming National Cathedral in the capital.
We spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation. Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Join us for breakfast daily, only on City TV.
Wherever the weekend sporting action happens, we will bring it to you here on Scorecard. Every goal, every dunk, every punch, the winning strides, and the winning volleys.
Come international media, he said, look, wait, sit and wait. Let me have a meal with my people. And I think that's the same cool, it's the same organization he brings to the field every time I've seen him play. He looks to me like somebody who's played over 50 caps already. Okay. But this guy has barely played over 25 caps for the national team.
All of the weekend's action in one place. Scorecard, every Sunday at 8 p.m. prompt on CTTV.
Welcome back to Face to Face. We're speaking to architect extraordinaire, Sir David Adjaye. Now, David, talk to me about some of the amazing projects you've done. Let's start with the one in Oslo,
the Nobel Peace Center.
Mm-hmm. Yes. How did you get a gig like that? You need to let me know your contacts.
That was probably one of my first big international breaks. But it was a competition run by the Nobel Peace Center, and they specifically went to architects that they felt were emerging, that were of interest, and they held the competition. And I presented to the board, and I couldn't believe it when I won. It was an incredible shock, and it really was the first project that took me out of London to North Europe, and we built the project in 3 years, and it was a huge success. And really, it was, an opportunity to make a public space for the Nobel, which had no place where the public could go. They had an office with a medal, and the ceremony was very big and everything. But they kept having busloads of people coming to the Nobel Center, and but nowhere to show them anything. So really, the museum was created, and the center was created to display the Nobel laureate of that year, but also to talk about the history of the Nobel, the 100 years, this idea of a dedication to peace and to prosperity in the world. So it was, for me, also a very touchstone project because it fit my politics. Mm-hmm. This politics of a kind of peaceful world and coexistence and sustainability in our living environments.
And beside that, I think the one that put you on the map, $550 million worth, became the National Museum of African American History and Culture. That's another competition you won.
Yes.
How many competitions do you enter, David?
I enter a lot of competitions a year. It's part of my business working globally is that we enter important cultural competitions around the world. Mm-hmm. And it is incredibly humbling to be able to go into another country and to learn about that country and to help them build infrastructure. So cultural infrastructure. the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is just behind the White House, and is the last building to complete the monumental core of America. It's taken 200 years to build the center of America, and ours is the last building. People don't realize, people think it's been done for a long time, but slowly, they've been building all the parts. There's a monumental park, there's the Avenue of Cultural Buildings, there's Parliament, there's the White House, there's the monuments to all the heroes and presidents, etc. That's all part of what they call the monumental core, and our building is the last part of that. So it's been incredibly powerful. It took me 9 years to work on that. Yeah, since I won the competition, I had no gray hair, and after I finished, I got them.
Are there Ghanaian elements in that building? Did you sneak in a few?
I think that I would say that there is, West African elements. I became very interested in the statistics that actually more than 80% of African Americans have their genealogy in West Africa. And we know that now because of the gene testing that we can do. And we also know that because of the fact that slavery was a commodity, it was a commercial trade. So it was very well itemized where they took people from and where they went to. They didn't record their names, so they lost their identities, but they understood them as commodities. So we know exactly the number and we know where they came from.
But here we're proud Ghanaians. You've been knighted. The name is out there. A lot of people don't know if you did have projects in Ghana.
I didn't until this administration came in. I had no projects in Ghana. I had not been called, but this administration, this president called me to come in and be part of his agenda, which I thought was very powerful, which is Ghana Beyond Aid. And this, for me, was a very powerful statement because I was just shocked by the audacity of the statement, but also the kind of specific kind of enlightenment of the statement. It really was kind of a way to take hold of the situation and to move past the conditions that we find in a significant way. I always love, I work in Joburg. We're finishing a project, and I met some of the ANC early sort of activists. I'm working with Humasekela's family at the moment, helping them on a project. And Barbara, who was one of the key people in the ANC and became an ambassador, was telling me how Ghana was the first country she came to when she had to exile out of South Africa. And she came to Ghana because it was the first black country to be independent, where she landed, where there was government and structure that was run by black people. And that did not exist on the continent, not even 60 years ago. Yeah, and that she was so inspired that Ghanaians would just mobilize under the then president Nkrumah, and within a decade had built this infrastructure that we take for granted, which is sadly still what we're using. But he did that in such a short amount of time, accelerated the ambition of this country, and this country seemed to be able to rise to that incredible challenge and gave hope to the entire continent. I was so humbled when she told me that, and she said, that's what Ghana means to us, and how that is so powerful. And that is, something that I always keep remembering, that we do something, but we also do it not just for ourselves, but also for the continent.
In government's quest of building a national cathedral, some key facilities on the land where we are going to build the national cathedral are going to go down. Homes of appeal court judges, Judicial Training Institute, and the National Scholarship Secretariat. All these buildings are going to go, and even including the old passport office. First of all, what do you make of the building of the National Cathedral?
Okay, I believe building a national cathedral wouldn't be so much relevant for our country today, because there are already large centers where Christians can congregate and then have their meetings. There are big church buildings where Christians can also congregate and have their meetings. So taking another budget to build a national cathedral, I think wouldn't be relevant in this present age. And also demolishing building structures which are already serving a certain purpose wouldn't be much needed, whilst there are a lot of vast lands that could be used. So I think it's not really that needful. Yeah. Even if you are supposed to build it, we shouldn't demolish structures. We should find a large land somewhere else and then put up the structure, where I believe it will be very helpful.
I think breaking these buildings will not help, but it is good to another area that we build it there to help us, then to help the youth in that area also to get work to do. So that's my point of view.
What do you make of the fact that build facilities like the Judicial Training Center, a place where appeal court judges lay their heads, and also the old passport office, the National Scholarship Secretariat. All these buildings would have to go down for the construction of the National Cathedral. Does it really, is it prudent?
Okay, to my view, breaking of these infrastructures will cost another different cost. So why not we getting another place so that we can build that cathedral, so that it will create more employment for the youth and people who need a job to do. That one too will be fair.
What do you also make of the fact that we have to demolish certain structures in these areas before we are able to put up a national cathedral? And do you even agree with the construction of a national cathedral?
Well, I don't know much about why we need a cathedral now, but for me, I think that we have lots of churches already, and if we should start like this, Christianity is not the only religion we have in the country at the moment. Very soon the Muslims will also say they want a place like that. Traditionalists will also say they want a place like that. Can we as a nation afford to give each of these groups what they demand for when it comes to the time? I think demolishing houses or demolishing facilities to get a national cathedral is not really needed now. There are much better things we could do as a nation, because we have churches. We have the Presbyterian Church, Methodist Church, lots of other churches where Christians worship, and even most of us complain that the churches are even too much. Yeah, there are too many churches, and we don't really even practice what we hear in the churches. So for me, I don't think it's needed now. Yeah, and if it's really needed, then as he said, maybe we can go to any of the developing places, and then we can just get it there, at least just to develop the area more.
Okay, I believe when you're talking about prayer should be a time where you spend it alone with God. So it should be somewhere outside town, somewhere without distraction. So if you are supposed to put up this prayer cathedral, I believe it should be somewhere outside town. We have Abri, we have other remote areas where we could have your peace or your quiet time to, commune with God. So I don't see the relevance demolishing existing structures and then putting up another structure for the sake of the National Cathedral.
Maybe government is of the view that, well, this is close to the center of the city. It's close to the Parliament House, the AICC, the Black Star Square. So perhaps if we bring it close to the city, in terms of proximity, it will make sense. Don't you think that one too is something that we should consider?
Oh, I think this place is already choked. There is traffic already. And when that thing can more traffic, it will cause more traffic. So I think when it goes to another area too, it will help. It will help. So I think it will help when it goes to another area. That's my point of view.
So which area would you advise that?
Oh, where do we have lands now? So look at all those places. Must it be in Accra, or maybe in another region that will also develop that area? You see. So we'll look at all those things and then think about where it will help. Yes, our leaders will have to sit down and think about all those things, so that maybe we should go to another region also that will help the youth to work. It will help.
Maybe government wants it to be at the center of the city, close to key facilities in terms of proximity. Don't you think it's a good thing?
Okay, if it's so, then I think we already have lots of places we can use for that. We have the stadium, we have there are lots of places where we can do that if really that's what we want, because they have this National Day of Prayer. They've been holding it. I know they hold it. I'm not so sure of the venue, but it's also in the center of town. So if
the one at the Black Star Square.
Yes. So if really that's what we want, then we already have a place. So I don't think it's really necessary demolishing buildings to just have that.
So if you were to meet the president and share a word with him, what would you have told him? I will start with you.
Okay, if I should meet the president, I would, just as I have said earlier, I would just say to him that humbly that for me, I don't think the nation needs a national cathedral now, even to start with, before we go to where we are supposed to get it. I really don't think we need it now, and then I'll ask him to reconsider that. Yeah.
What about you, sir?
Okay, for me, what I'll tell the president is, I know there will be an obvious reason why he wanted to put up this structure, and I'm not downplaying its purpose, but if he's supposed to put it up, I don't see the need to demolish existing structures in the center of Accra and then re-putting up. I believe the cost is going to be more, so I believe they can find a remote area somewhere and then put up the structure for the benefit of the country.
Break down the elements for us. We saw the model when you unveiled it in March, but it was on television. What should we expect from this National Cathedral? What is it? What makes it unique?
So I think the directive is that this project is not just building a building, but it's also about understanding the monumental core of Ghana. There is a monumental core, and most Ghanaians probably don't understand it. There's State House, which is built with the conference center across the road from it. And then you can say at the head is the Cemetery of Heroes. You can imagine that as a head and two wings. The cathedral becomes the sacred space of the monumental core and a people's landscape that completes this monumental core of commerce, parliament, sacred space, and honoring our ancestors and those whose blood is shed for us. That then creates a space. A sacred space is also a place for the people. It is a place not for just the elite, but for the people of Ghana to have as a gathering and convening space for the deep faith we have. We are more than 70% Christian in this country. There are more than 30,000 churches, but none that represents the people, the totality of the people. We have churches that represent each church and each group, but we have nothing which actually expresses our national pride about our spirituality, which is a very important part of our culture. But also that the idea that we also have not just a building, but a landscape that people can come to, that they can feel is theirs, is very important to the way in which our democracy works and the way in which it's articulated. The building, you know, in thinking about it, is not just about making a church. It is really a state space that can celebrate spiritual things and can be multi-faith. I think the president and the bishops are saying it can be absolutely about expressing the spirituality of the nation. But the building also is a place of education. It's about teaching music, religious studies, about engagement. It's about a learning center. It's about a museum. And it's really offering another kind of opportunity in the Accra landscape. The building of cathedrals, since, you know, we can remember from Karnak Temple to the Ark of the Covenant by Solomon, and we can keep going through Gaudi in Spain, through the Washington Cathedral to Westminster Cathedral by Wren. These things are built by cities that realize that they are cities that are emerging, and they're built to do two things. One, to speak about their sense of their future, that they believe in themselves and they have a projection into the future. But they also consolidate that the city is grown up. It is a metropolitan place. It's a place where things are happening. So it's working on a lot of levels. It's really something that is a very powerful moment. And it happens, really, you can only build a national cathedral once, unless if it gets broken down. So there's a moment in any kind of forming, any nation's forming, where this moment comes. And when you build it with all your might, because you're glorifying something that is beyond just the mundane. It's not a hospital or a housing estate. It is something which is about ideas, and it's about encapsulating the aspiration of the nation into the future. And why is that important? Well, as I said, architecture matters. If you go to Paris or you go to a city and you see dignified monuments around you, you're proud of your city. And you feel that the city has a relationship both to the past and communicates to the future. And I think that this is something that we underestimate. When you have around you monuments that don't have the dignity of the aspiration that you have in yourself, it can wear you down. And architecture's role is to reinforce that. When you see a beautiful park made that you can use, then you see the road made that is better, you feel better because you feel your city's getting better and things are going on. The spiritual is just as important in that. And to have a space that is a national spiritual space is critical to consolidate this idea that we have about ourselves as Ghanaians and how we see ourselves in the future. We believe in the spiritual, but we also believe in the power that it has on our society in edifying it and in supporting it in its agenda for development. So I'm incredibly honored by this project, and also I was at first shocked. It's like, a church? We don't need another church. There's 30,000 churches in Ghana. But it's like, this is not a church. This is a symbol about the president's agenda about development, but also talking about the nation of Ghana and how it wants to project itself. It's interesting to me that as soon as we unveil the images, because it's a church that's based on our national culture, you know, the research into, you know, our culture, our Durban culture, the way in which we celebrate our kinship, and that relationship to our religion is very close. So the building is very specifically a Ghanaian building. It's not even a building, it's not like a Gothic cathedral that we're trying to replicate. It's a unique building that comes from our understanding of our modern democracy and our culture as it evolves, to make a modern statement about that, which is talking about where we are in Ghana now, and in a way gives an image to the future generations about what we thought of ourselves now and how we want to go forward. That we don't want to leave our culture when we modernize. We want to infuse it into our buildings to make a unique place, which makes us proud of who we are.
Quickly, let me push you on this one. What have been your thoughts on the response of citizens to this design of yours?
It's been absolutely interesting, and I think that all projects that are not fully clear to people split people. So, you know, you get people who go, oh, we don't need this, we want to build a hospital or church or, you know, something. And then you get people who go, we totally get it, this is incredible. It's been interesting to see both things. And I think that that's healthy, because it means that there's a debate in society about it. But the true merit of what this project will be when it's built and people see what it does. It will be an extraordinary employment generator. It will lift skills. It'll bring new technologies to this country that are not present. It will elevate us in the world stage as being a country, an African country that believes in progress and uses its people to deliver that progress. These are not things to be underestimated, because they help the development goals, even with one small thing like that. But because it's such a symbolic thing, it can have that kind of resonance and power. I think that it's natural that some people are just dismissive, because, you know, we have poverty and we have incredible aspiration. But we are a continent that's probably the last continent developing. So we're going to have this binary. You know, we're going to have this binary. We're not going to be able to solve all of poverty before we start building monuments. We have to do everything at the same time to bring it all up. And I think that will cause a lot of frustration for people. But also, for me, I look forward to the change of the image of Ghana from being about a dependency, begging bowl kind of country to one that actually is mobilizing, growing its middle class, growing its elite, growing its intellectual base, growing its citizenry, the people who build the country, growing its farmers, growing its communities, and bringing them into the future and giving them purpose in life. You know, this is very important.
Thank you very much, David, on that. When we return, final leg, I'll be asking him about his favorite cities in Ghana and which one he feels has the nicest buildings. Of course, I'm going to ask him.
Good evening, this is The Point of View. We're live on City TV.
Tune in to The Point of View, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. as Bernard Avlet takes the news further. He will bring the right guests, ask them the relevant questions, and get you the real insights you need on the big stories for the day.
We need taxes to run the economy. How do you do it sensibly and have the least pernicious effect in terms of cascading through the economy? And I think that is the thinking that is required. It's not a denial that we need taxes, and I think that is the difference in the two administrations.
The Point of View with Bernard Avlet, Monday and Wednesday nights, only on City TV.
It's engaging, detailed, and loaded with factual and incisive analysis. It's The Big Issue, your preferred Saturday morning news and current affairs analysis program on City TV. Tune in this and every Saturday at 9 a.m. and hear the newsmakers discuss the top issues for the week.
At that time, Charlotte was complete. I'm not defending Charlotte. I'm talking about the way we behave like hypocrites and ostriches in this country. At that time, she was a perfect person.
It's The Big Issue with Stella Madonu on City TV. This and every Saturday at 9 a.m.
Accra is a city with a beautiful coastline and developing infrastructure, but these elements are currently disjointed and underutilized for the public. Our vision for Marine Drive weaves together these various nodes into a cohesive urban core, embracing the country's legacy and preparing for its future in the 21st century. Utilizing the city's best assets, its markets, recreation areas, and leisure spaces, the Promenade will provide the people of Accra unprecedented access to the city's beachfront and to create around its existing monumental core a new monumental avenue and public promenade right on the sea. This new public promenade is punctuated by 3 new anchors, each of which celebrates Ghana's rich history and provides the capital world-class civic spaces. Anchoring the promenade on either side are the new National Concert Hall next to Nkrumah's monument and the National Museum and refurbished Osu Castle and grounds. Both iconic destinations will be open to the public. Extending from Independence Square down to the waterfront, the new park culminates in a coastal overlook that offers dramatic sweeping vistas across this part of the Gulf of Guinea. Three elements form a framework for a network of exciting new beachfront developments that together will establish a defining skyline for Ghana's capital and convert tourism and the local economy into a real transformative force that will truly benefit the country and its people.
Yeah, welcome back, and it's the final headline of my conversation with Sir David Adjaye. Now, David, I want to ask you about Accra. Now, I left the country a bit and returned and saw lots of shiny glass buildings and whatnot. I'm not an architect. I don't like most of the buildings I see. You're an architect. Tell me, the skyline is changing, but is it nice, Accra?
I don't think Accra is developing, which is good, but the quality of the architecture is not good enough yet, and it needs to be much better. But also I think that planning in Accra needs to be better controlled. We need to now understand that Accra is a destination for investment, so we need to be in control of the where we allow people to build, where we think we want to make public spaces, parks. We have to make more public space as people come into the city, as the city is growing. We can't just have buildings and roads only, and we have to green the city. Because, you know, without greening the city, just by greening the city, we can reduce the floor temperature that people experience by 5 or 6 degrees by just planting the right canopy shade trees, not little ornamental flowers, but tree planting. And Accra did in the 70s a lot of cutting of trees because of diseases and things. Those things that we thought were trees born from trees, we were wrong about. We need to green the city. We need to create more public space, and we need to control planning so that it actually supports public life. So a developer does something, he doesn't just make a gated community, he improves the area around his neighborhood because he gets a benefit, and he should improve the area around his benefit based on a code, not based on what he thinks, based on a code which is citywide. So planning in Accra needs to be much more centralized to understand a vision, which can then be replicated. But also we need to, as I said, green the city. I mean, for me, the greening of the city is such an important issue. The city temperature is too hot. And we need to kind of just create. You go to some parts of cantonments and you see those places which were not cut or disturbed, and you see how the temperature change is from the places where it's just out in the sun to where you're under the trees. There's no reason why almost every high street in Accra doesn't have massive tree canopies. If you think of beautiful cities like Harare, even Tel Aviv, Mexico, all these places that are hot have incredible landscapes that cool the temperature so that people can walk on the streets, and they have parks so that people can actually be in the evening out in the city, using the waterfront. We're doing the whole Marine Drive development, which is really a new public waterfront to try and face the waterfront. And it's really to teach Ghanaians about using the seaside, not just as a weekend thing, but as a kind of resource that's our asset, because the city is on the water and we should celebrate it. If you look at Angola right now, Luanda is one of the most beautiful cities in Africa, because they've turned their city to face the water, and they've created a public promenade and waterfront park, and every citizen from rich to poor goes there. It's not just for the elite, it's for everyone, and it's beautiful to see.
Okay. Now, which is your favorite city when you visit Ghana, as an architect?
I think when I come to Ghana, I'm more interested in the traditional cities than I am in the modern cities. So places like Axim is very interesting to me. To go to the Akana, Achim Amain, Chebe, to go to Asante Hine's house, to go to Kumasi. These are, for me, I'm interested in the tradition of Ghana and its heritage more than I am in its modernity. There's some very beautiful buildings that were built during the Nkrumah period that I love, that are modernist buildings. But apart from that, there's not much that has grabbed my eye. We need to get on with quality, not just quantity, and not mimicking things from the West, but developing a unique architecture that springs from our incredible heritage and culture. We have so much here. We don't need to copy other people. We can create great houses for the ordinary person to palaces that are steeped in our culture, and that's the agenda I'm very interested in. The identity of West Africa and its cities.
I find it interesting how you talk about building in a way that deals with people at a certain level and people perhaps who are not so fortunate. Are you an architect for the rich, or you're an architect for the poor?
I'm an architect for people, for human beings. And as that, my architecture has to work for all the stratas of society. So when we're doing a project where maybe a wealthy person is sponsoring it, we take on work that is for a charity that has no money, and we're helping them to find money to build. And we give the same design intent. I always say to my team, we work to empower ideas. We don't work to empower money. We work to empower ideas. Money is just the device to help our societies create the worlds that we want to create. I'm not an economist, I'm an architect, so I'm dealing with the building of buildings, and I don't do architecture to make money. I do architecture because of that purpose.
Now, we live in a country where there's a huge housing deficit. There's
major problem.
There's a lot of talk about affordable housing that nobody can actually afford. What are your thoughts on making buildings cheaper in terms of design, so that people can afford to buy these houses? Nobody can afford to buy an affordable home that costs $60,000, $70,000.
This equation is more complicated than just, I think that people think that it's just about making buildings cheaper. Well, it's not really about that. It's a twofold argument. The problem is that prices of goods and making buildings has got to a certain cost level. It means that society has to grow to get to that level as well. We have a double agenda. We have to grow our middle class and our economies, and they have to earn more money, because we're living in that world where things cost more. So one is about raising the living standard and the wage standard of people, and two, allowing architecture to be smart enough not to be wasteful, so that the two things meet. And that's when you get affordability. You can try and subsidize things when you have a disparity. because that's all you have, because the material cost is one thing. It's not the ideas that cost money, it's the material cost. And that's the problem that you're negotiating. But it says that we have to lift up our society, which is, I think, what this president is up to. Lift up the society, create jobs, allow people to have mobility, let the private sector work to increase our livelihoods and our quality of life, so that we can afford the homes that are built for us, we can afford the life that's in front of us, and we can all celebrate and enjoy this great country of ours.
Now, your business is thriving, and I realize you're undertaking projects in Dakar, you're in Lagos, you are in New York, you are here, you're there. How do you find time? Are you still vested personally in all these projects, or you're at the stage where now you can say, hey, Kofi, you handle this, Kwesi, you handle that?
I'm not a corporate office. I mean, there are different kinds of offices. Some offices do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm what I call a studio practice. So I'm interested in my own development is what I'm doing. So it's taken 25 years to get to the point where we have work from different countries and different economies. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't handed down. It was really incredible hard work. And we had times when I literally was going bankrupt. I had to remortgage my houses, my home and my car, everything, to try and kind of support my business. And those were tough times. But yes, we're in a place where there's celebration, where we're able to choose the types of work we want to do. But for me, the work is, we're not increasing volume, we're increasing the quality and the choices, because it's also to do with what I want to do at this time that I've now matured as an architect and I'm capable of doing things in different parts of the world. So really, at this time, it's not the time for me to rest. This is the time for me to look and put my energy and this experience that I've learned kind of working in different places into the right projects. That's why Ghana is really important to me. That's why I want to help Ghana kind of accelerate. We can help with planning. We can help with all these development issues to really bring best practice so we can accelerate past things that we ought not to be doing, so we can get the best. For me, my pride is to see that Ghana becomes a nation of design excellence, because I actually think Ghanaians are actually natural designers. We're great designers. And it's a shame that we don't have that global image. We have an image in the world now of having great artists. One of the greatest artists in the world, Elan Sui, is a Ghanaian. And he's one of the greatest sculptors in the world. His work is behind, you looked at, Microsoft and all these directors, they have his work behind them. Most Ghanaians don't even know that, I think. Elan Sui is probably he won the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement, one of the greatest artists in our time. And we don't even know who he is. And he's an extraordinary character. So the art world is happening. But I'd love to see that the design world also kind of emerges, and design and our talents as great creatives is celebrated globally.
Now, you've done some incredible work for a lot of people. And I'm just going to mention a couple of names. Just tell me what went through the projects that you did there. I've always found Ewan McGregor fascinating. You did some work
Actors. Yes, when Ewan was a big star in Star Wars and all that, I built his house, Alexander McQueen, all these artists. Yes, I've worked with all these people.
And it was exciting for you there.
It's, what I love, it's not so much that they're rich and famous. I was really interested in the way they thought about things. What the privilege has been for me. For me, I'm not too fascinated about celebrity just because it's celebrity. I'm interested in the quality of the person and what they contribute. Because the people I worked with, I've been fortunate to see that they were, yes, celebrities, but they had concerns in the world. They wanted to do things. And that was incredible to share that with them, that they had a passion about making things better for other people or for doing things in the world. And that's been the privilege of meeting people that are famous for me. And if you don't have an agenda as a famous person, it's not very interesting, to be really honest. I'm very happy for you, but I'm interested in people who want to make change in the world. Those are the people I gravitate towards.
And what were you doing when you received the call from Buckingham Palace that, hey, you were about to be knighted?
I think I was in a business meeting in Abu Dhabi.
Did you get out of the meeting?
Yes. I did. I had to. And I wondered how they got my number. And I was like, okay, there's a British Secret Service for you. I don't know how they do that. But they got my number, they called me. I had to run out and I was screaming because I couldn't quite believe it. But it was kind of amazing. And it's amazing to be acknowledged at my age. In terms of architecture, I'm a young person.
And was it for you coming full circle, 51 years old, didn't grow up there, coming from immigrants, and you get a call that says you're being knighted for being the best at what you do?
It was such a powerful moment for me, and it was a very tearful moment. My father has passed away several years ago, so he didn't see it, but my mother, I shared it with my mother, and I know that my father would have been so proud of me. I'm so proud of my father's generation, that generation from the 50s and 60s, who were born in the 20s, who saw the transition from colonialism to independence and went out into the world, or went into the countryside, or went into different parts of the nation to help Ghana become the country that it should be in the future. You know, and my parents, you know, in their own path, took me to, you know, to Europe. I was able to get an amazing education and learn, and I feel so honored that that country understood that I'd become great, and I now want to be able to come back to the country that I'm from to help it also grow and to be the excellent nation that I know it is.
So we should be seeing more of you in Accra, not just...
I think that you will see a lot of me.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Sir David Adjaye, for your time. Thanks for passing through Face to Face.
Thank you so much.
A great pleasure.
Thank you.
So we've been speaking to Sir David Adjaye. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. Catch you on the next episode of Face to Face. Have a good day.